Anyway, let's see. You've got these three coffees, Guatemala, and the Guatemala's from San Marcos. And how's that doing for you? Are you doing
No, it's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about gone actually. The Kenya, we've got about
I
1,000 pounds left.
I am Coffee Kevin. Are we on the air? Fantastic. Okay, I'm Coffee Kevin, and I'm here with Tim Coonan, a good friend of mine. And what's he? You got a little coffee place called Big Shoulders.
Big Shoulders Coffee. Yeah, yeah.
And so when I say little coffee place, you got a lot of coffee places now,
Well, yeah, we're up to 7 locations
Wow.
in the Chicago area, and,
including the airport.
Midway Airport.
Yeah,
Yep.
the one I go in and out
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So there's actually a couple of locations out there at Midway. so
Correct.
it does
You
a-
can't go
do a-
through
do a great-
TSA. Once you get out of TSA, you're the
Right or left.
The first
We're,
place
you
you see
there,
is
yeah.
your
Yeah.
coffee place.
Yeah, it's really
Fantastic.
exciting. Thank you. But we've really worked hard in the last year. We've opened three locations, so super exciting.
Wow. And you're building a new roastery?
We do. We are. We're in the process of moving right now from our Lake Street location over to a new location in Pilsen, 19th and Western. So super excited to be in the neighborhood of CinemaScape and
Right. You got the film studio.
yep,
That's where they make
yep,
the movies
and
in Chicago.
Lagunitas. Yeah, exactly. So it's we're experiencing a lot of growth.
We've thought about having Coffee Con there.
Oh, at CinemaScape, that would be awesome.
Apparently, they
Yeah.
don't do much on the weekends, and that's what I've heard.
Cool.
So, I would love to. We have we're in a film studio in Seattle, and it's our best location. It's just
great.
location wise, it's our favorite location. It
Yeah.
just is it's fabulous to be in a film studio because the lighting is already there.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, the plumbers is the plumbers union out here in Warrenville.
Oh, yeah, IBEW,
The electricians, yeah. That's a location that works. I know it has this few challenges, but it's worked well for you.
It's a great location. The only thing we hurt ourselves with is we're not Chicago.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I have a number of people that are just that say you're not in the city.
Right.
And it's too bad old Mayor Daley isn't alive because he could bring a 1 foot piece of land all
Right.
the way out
to
here.
incorporate you.
And that's how
yes.
they did it with O'Hare Airport.
Yeah.
So that's the story anyway. I love your coffee,
Thanks.
but more important, I think. Well, no, it's equally important. Not more important. Equally important. You have a down to earth approach. And I'm unique means one. I certainly know other people in the coffee business who also have a down to earth approach. But I really like. You know how refreshing that is.
Well, thanks. That's with purpose that we do that. So we're a service company that sells coffee to people. So we're more of a people company that sells this product. So we really want to try to create a friendly experience for all our customers and our employees. We really want to. I know there's a lot of roasters out there that I really respect that do a really great job with coffee, do a much better job than we do with coffee, and but I think that they drop the ball when it comes to hospitality and customer service and creating culture, things that really sustain a business over the long haul. I think that there's room for that in the marketplace, and that's that's where we put a stake in the table and say this is what we're gonna claim.
Now, you have done that, and I can honestly say I have been in probably not every one of your stores, but probably 80% of them. I think there are a couple of them that you've bought recently that I haven't been in yet. But I have never had a person. I don't always introduce myself. Sometimes I'm just in a hurry to get somewhere, and I say, "Well, of course I'm going to stop here. I know the coffee's good." So I pull over and loading zone.
Yeah,
Put the
put
flashers
the
on,
flash,
and
sure.
jump in.
Do the Chicago thing.
Well, of course, I wouldn't be much of a resident if I didn't follow suit. And I've never had anyone be condescending to me if I couldn't pronounce something right. No, it's very easy to read, understand. It's that, but it's more. It's just a general warmth there that there's no non-judgmental, and I don't get any of the
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
I don't believe me. We fail every day. But our goal is to really treat each customer as they are. If they're, it's just a simple idea. Engage the customer and act as though they're intelligent, and listen, and meet their needs quickly, exceed their needs when we can, talk them through, when we're not quite sure what they're looking for, when we know that it's perhaps a beverage from a large national chain, that we know, okay, we really can't do that thing, but we have something close. What do you think? And it's so it's engaging with.
What's an example of that?
Oh, like okay, so if someone comes in and they ask for a macchiato.
Caramel macchiato?
Well, just a
no, as for a macchiato,
just a
but
macchiato.
they mean a caramel macchiato.
That's what they mean. That's what they mean.
Yeah, I understand.
And so we don't even have a macchiato on our menu, on purpose. So when
because there would be a lot of people ordering it, be disappointed.
Because exactly. Yeah. So we don't want to automatically assume that the person is looking for a sweet drink with whipped cream and sprinkles on it.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, right, sure.
You know what? I know lots of people who enjoy them, so okay.
Of course,
yeah.
And we don't want to also assume that it's a person that wants an espresso macchiato with a
right, which is what I would order. In fact, I go to Starbucks if I have to go to Starbucks. Yep. I do, and I order one, and actually they do a pretty good job. And it's with just the brief foam,
just a mark.
Yeah, mark.
So we we kind of try to meet the customer where they're coming from, yeah. And so. We ask some exploratory questions when a macchiato comes up. Some flags go up on our side, and we say, we can get that for you. Did you want a version that's just the espresso version with a little bit of foamed milk? And it's a simple question, but it's engaging, making eye contact, looking at body language, all these sorts of cues that really tell a story. And so when the person's like, no, I don't want that. I want something with whipped cream, right, and right. Yeah. So then we're like, oh, great, awesome. Well, we don't actually have the ability to do that, but we have something that I think you'll like. And typically we'll do something like maybe our marshmallow latte. And 9 times out of 10, people are like, "Oh, this is awesome! This isn't what I came in
right.
for."
It's comparable in most of the key characteristics.
Exactly. And so, but it's also it's not just handing the person the drink; it's the follow up afterwards. Like, is that okay? Does that exceed your expectations? Does that take care of what you were looking for? Do you want a little more homemade vanilla syrup? We make a homemade vanilla bean syrup.
Yes, you do.
Do you want a little bit more of that? No charge. We'll just put some in and take care of you. So it's really just this idea of hospitality where we take responsibility for our guests while they're under our roof. And that, Kevin, that really comes from my years as a chef and working in restaurants and working in fine dining. And this is the level of care that we try every day to achieve. And again, we're not always successful, but we do our darndest.
It's and it's paying off because you're growing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and I think that is, I know I know a number of people have tried and not succeeded at
Yeah.
that. So it is something to be said, and ultimately has a lot to do with the pleasure. It would be like if I'm just as a personal consumer, if I put a lot of effort into making someone a Chemex and comes over here and they're neighbors, and I have this. I usually, when I meet people, the first thing I do is invite them over for coffee, or my wife does for me.
right.
And there are these new couple just moved in last month, and we're like, they've got a couple of very little children, and Pat said, "Oh, you've got to come over to, and have some of Kevin's coffee." And but if they come over, and then all of a sudden I start telling them. Either start talking about politics or I could really ruin it. So what difference did it make?
Yeah.
The whole experience includes
Well,
how you
that's
treat people.
yeah, and that's interesting as well, because it's not at that point, it's not about the coffee or the
Right.
food or
Right.
anything that gets us to gather. So that's where I think coffee is a really powerful thing, where it, like food, anytime you get two or more people to sit down at a table together, it then becomes about the people, the conversation, the creating community, and I think that's a really powerful thing that coffee holds.
It is, and I can remember going to one coffee shop with a friend of mine. I was in New York, and she works for a TV network. She used to buy programming from me, so I very good friends. I want to make sure she had a great experience. I took her to a place that I already knew their coffee was stellar. In fact, I wanted them to be an exhibitor at CoffeeCon New York, and I took her in there, and she looked around for something like cream and sugar, in effect, to put in the coffee. She loved the fact that it was a pour over. She thought that was wonderful. But she was looking for something to put in it because that's how she always has her coffee.
Sure.
And she's not, she's a network television executive, very sophisticated about art. She could tell you everything about the television, making a TV show, but she isn't a coffee expert. And she did not want to have just coffee. She wanted to have a little sweetener and a little creamer. And I said,
Please don't tell me that.
"Oh, I said to them, is there cream
going
and
a
sugar
direction
for my
here."
friend?" And the barista
Frowned on that, yeah.
and said, "I've heard that they have some at the bar next door has a coffee maker, and they probably have some like
Some
sweet
powder.
and low or something."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was something derisive even. It was, and it just, I thought, God, you guys don't realize this. This is a very nice person who actually lives here
Yeah.
and will probably become a regular customer, and is, frankly, quite an influential person in town.
Yeah.
She probably could get the local stations to show up.
It's one of the problems with coffee. It's one of the problems. So, I wasn't there when
Yeah.
the late '70s, when wine became moved from jug wine
Oh, yeah,
to
yeah.
so the 1976
my wife
Judgment
and
of
I were,
Paris,
yeah,
and all of a sudden
Yeah.
California wine took off, and
Yeah.
I gotta think that those early wineries that were growing off the shoulders of the great work that those Chardonnay and Cab winemakers that really were successful at the '76 Judgment of Paris. I got to think the people that were like, I can make wine, thought that perpetuated this snobbish idea of equating their wine to the same level of greatness. And it's unfortunate, because I think it's really missed. Coffee is missing the boat there. It's about hospitality. It's not about the coffee.
It's everything, because and I'm surprised we're going back to the hippies and I was in college around that time. I can tell you, I can tell, I certainly,
Did you have one of those wire spool tables in your dorm
of
room? And
course, I
yeah,
had a beanbag chair. I had the whole, shebang that my mother went out and purchased it with her employee discount at Marshall Fields. But in the hipsters section, I don't know what it was called, wherever they were the young Marians were going, at the State Street store. Uh, Definitely, uh, coffee has tried to do the same thing, and I think somewhat purposefully. I understand the concept that you
I
want
do
to go
too.
after the specialty. Well, anyone who's been to a specialty foods show knows what I'm talking
Oh
about.
yes,
It's done everything.
yeah,
You know?
it's the natural route to go.
I mean, Whole Foods business model is that movement,
Yeah,
and it includes wine, and includes but the wines, yeah, the wine snobs really killed it to the point that there are people that I still know that I think don't drink wine, not because they wouldn't love wine, they drink it because it's off-putting to them.
they're uncomfortable with
Yeah.
the whole experience. Sure.
And no one. The greatest way to be is to be on a date and be humbled by having the staff person correct you, about how you're pronouncing
Sure,
the wine.
sure.
And I.
But circling back to your friend, that the TV executive that wanted a little bit of dairy or sweetener in her coffee, those are things that So I prefer to drink my coffee black, but when we roast and cup coffee and we sample coffee at our facility, before it goes out to sale for different people, we part of it is consuming it with cream, with sugar, with
So you do actually
with soy
do a
milk,
test.
with soy milk, with honey, so that we kind of can meet the customer where they're at, rather than just put something out there that we think is really, this is great and you should drink it because we think it's great.
What temperature would you brew a Chemex at?
202 is what
We
I
got
typically.
it. Oh, I put it at 203.
Awesome.
So that's
Oh, that-
okay. That'll bring us
It'll
right
be-
in, because
it'll be
by the
fine.
time it gets over here and I stop talking to do it.
Yeah.
Now, question about sourcing.
Yeah.
How involved are you? First of all, how do you split your company up? I'm not trying to make this a business to business seminar,
Oh, that's-
but what I am trying
that's
to
fine.
ask. I met Diego. I know you.
Yep.
Who does what really? Are you roasting?
I'm really no longer. If I'm roasting, I'm out of position. So when we started this 7 years ago, I roasted all the coffee. In fact, I started roasting in our garage, 12 ounces at a time, and.
What kind of roaster did you have?
I had a cast iron antique popcorn popper that I stole from my mom. Had a little.
So your mom was an early
had a-
investor in
Yeah,
big
yeah,
films.
right. She, unbeknownst to her, she. So it was a cast iron thing with so it's akin to the Whirly popcorn
Yeah.
popper. So the Whirly Pop is made of aluminum. This one was made out of cast iron, so it had much more
Sure.
heat retention and even heating. But it was same concept. It had a little crank in the handle that would rotate a small paddle inside the pot, and it would So I got kicked to the garage by my wife, by Patricia, and because it was creating so much smoke.
Don't we all?
Yeah,
I know. I've been
Yes.
there.
So that's how it started. And then we moved to the Chicago, Milwaukee location. Bought a commercial roaster.
First one.
25 pound roaster that I did all the roasting. I was there 7 days a week, open to close, and boy, those days were so much simpler. So you fast forward to today, and we've got two roasters. We've got both Lorings, a Loring S15 Falcon and a Kestrel S35 Kestrel. So we can pump out a good amount of coffee every day. And there's room to grow, but really like the Loring tool, and so Diego does most of the roasting. We also have another roaster, Brett, that we brought on about 5 months ago. So Brett is continuing to learn and grow and take on more responsibility with roasting. So we're getting close to about 50-50 with Diego and Brett doing the roasting. I fill in when I have to, but typically I'm kind of managing this
Sure.
small world that we have. So 7 cafes, purchasing. Each cafe has a manager. We've got a in-store bookkeeper. You've met Sarah.
Yeah, I've met Sarah.
Who does a wonderful job for us. Patricia, my wife, is going to be coming on full time.
Oh, really?
Very
Okay.
soon.
Oh.
So I'm thrilled about that because we really need. She is, she's our secret weapon. She's a professional CFO. She works in the finance world, and there's no company our size that has a pro CFO.
Oh, that's great.
So
to hear
it's
that
really
you're doing that.
so Patricia's skill set, my skill set really integrate super well. I'm really strong in operations and systems, and just my job is. So I'm the entrepreneur,
Yeah,
and
right.
I moved from entrepreneur to manager, and now I'm trying to move into leadership, and so I'm trying to drive the direction of the business. We've got a sales team. We've got 2 people on our sales
Oh, you
team.
do. So you don't do all the
Yeah.
selling.
I don't. In fact, I'm probably so selling. I'm not good at selling. I'm terrible at selling.
You had to be somewhat good
yeah.
at it. You built the company.
Well, I think probably I just kind of put the product out there. Brew, do what you're doing. Brew some coffee for people.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Well,
and I think it's I thought I at least I think it was a refreshing approach where I was honest, look people
I've
in the
heard
eye,
of that,
and didn't I didn't establish the business on shaky promises or
Yeah,
stuff
that's
like
true.
that.
No, you guys deliver.
So we just we do our darndest to provide a great customer experience, whether that customer is the one that's in front of us looking for a latte, or whether that customer is the one that's in front of us looking for 10 pounds of coffee to brew at their cafe or restaurant. So oftentimes we say yes, sometimes we say no. In the middle there, we negotiate. Well, what can we do for you? Used to be when years ago somebody would call and say, hey, I'm out of coffee, I need coffee. I'd be like, awesome, I'll be there in an hour. And I'd get in my car and I'd drive to Rogers Park, and it's the most absurd place to get to when you're coming from downtown.
I think Rogers. I think the northeast side of the city is the hardest.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I
it's
know.
terrible.
Yeah.
I would with gusto. I'd be there and hand them a pound of coffee, and they'd hand me $10. So so we moved away from that sort of approach, but it's still customer service focused.
Now let's go to the most important part of the business, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is the producer, the farmer.
Yeah.
How is he? And I'm asking you for a big picture, almost not necessarily big shoulders view of it, but big picture meaning how should the coffee roasters be presenting coffees? And in some ways, I feel like the farmer is really the star. That it reminds me of motion pictures where actors come out and you see an actor who's like Brad Pitt, and you think, wow. My wife would say, "Oh, she remembers lines in films that he's done," and says, "What a brilliant guy." And of course, my wife worked in media, so we both understand that there are writers. She's not that naive. Right. But I'm just trying to fish for some analogy to this. Yeah. But people think, what a brilliant person, or how funny Robin Williams is. And I know Robin Williams could be funny, but Robin Williams also had script writers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how much of
there's
this?
There's some parallels here. So the farmer is the coffee farmer is the hidden star here. They do the they do a lot of the heavy lifting and the hard work before we touch it, but we have it's the second that we get it, it becomes Big Shoulders coffee, and so I think there's a
That's right.
I don't know the answers here, but
That's okay.
I would like to see. So there's a couple of different strategies that we're talking about internally about how. So right now, if nobody knows this, the coffee farmers are being pinched really hard. So
I know.
the price of green coffee is below or is less than what it costs to actually grow and harvest the coffee.
And so the concept. I'm sorry, I'm fishing for an old vaudeville joke here, but so the concept of making it up, making that shortfall up with quantity purchases doesn't really apply, does it? The more coffee you sell, the more you're losing.
Right, exactly. The more work it is, and
Yeah.
the less you're getting for
get
that
it.
work.
Done
So
that.
so I'm fully anticipating. So so there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of meat to really discuss there with just that. I'm confident that the market's going to recover here, and that it'll get back to where it was prior to that.
What
3
will
or
make
4
the
years
market
ago.
recover?
Well, a frost in Brazil, a hard frost in Brazil.
So we can always wish for a frost
there's
in
that.
Brazil.
There's that.
Yeah.
But so it kind of goes. So the real problem here is that the coffee market controls pricing, and roasters like us, roasters better than us, roasters much more intelligent than us, roasters bigger than us who have a lot more influence on identifying farmers that they like, creating a long-term relationship that works in true partnership, I think is the way to go. So that's outside. That's a new system of paying for someone's hard work based upon the merit of their work, and that's that. So the C market, just like oil or wheat or
Right.
hog bellies or whatever, each day determines what the price is for that day, and it's a volatile market that goes up and down, and so the price of green coffee changes every day, and so it's something we pay close attention to because we need to, as a business, to be smart about that. But it doesn't truly recognize good work.
Is that model outdated?
It is, absolutely. Now, there's a lot of discussion in the coffee community about what, finding a living wage for the farmers, an equitable a wage for what they do, and I'm a believer in that. I'm definitely a believer in the direct model of you grow this coffee, I want it, I'm willing to pay this for it. Does that work? That's kind of, I think that's the model that can really save coffee and create value for everybody, and the consumer as well. Now, that said, there's always wholesale customers that just want to beat me up on price, and I gotta say,
Not like restaurants
I
and
gotta
people
say,
like that.
restaurants are the worst. They're the worst.
Huh? Well, you and I are going to have to be eating at home a
Oh
lot
my
now,
gosh!
aren't we?
So
Yeah.
restaurants are the worst. They want the best, but they don't
Yeah.
want to pay that price.
Yeah. I know.
So it's one of the challenges of doing business. So so the coffee, this Kenya and this Guatemala that we have here, we could never sell that through wholesale channels. So these are coffees that can only be purchased directly from us.
Right. So you don't. Those aren't. If a restaurant tells you this is Big Shoulders Kenya, it can't be.
No, it's not.
No,
There's
it's
no,
not.
There's
Okay,
no
yeah,
way. it
I
is.
saw the look. Yeah,
There's no way it
they're not
is.
paying that. Yeah, I know.
So, so in a perfect world, we would control. So there's so much that can go
Right.
wrong, as you know, with coffee. So I can hand you a love. So farmer can hand me his most precious work,
Finest ever.
and I can completely screw it up in the roaster.
I certainly can.
And then I can, even if I'm successful,
Right, and then you
which
can
is
hand
of
it
course
to
the
me.
goal. I can hand it to you, and you can misjudge the grind.
My $30 Target coffee maker just might not be able to extract it.
Probably not.
No.
So the grind, the brew, the water temperature, the turbulence. I mean, there's all these. You're going down a rabbit hole with brewing coffee. So, that's one thing that Starbucks really works hard on, and they get it right. I don't particularly care for their coffee, but their loyal followers can go from city to city and get the same product.
The
and
consistency is
really,
awesome.
They work really hard on that. And we as coffee people would be arrogant to not look at Starbucks and think, wow, that's smart.
Yeah, no, they get that.
So,
They're good.
So there's some really good takeaways from the Starbucks. Of course, our conversation, as always, my conversations with Kevin, just kind of ping pong all over the place here. So we were talking about farmers.
Yeah.
I've seen some interesting new labels on bags of coffee that display what the picker was paid per kilo. That's pretty interesting.
That is.
That's really interesting to me. I've seen there's a lot of conversation with FOB pricing and so the true transparent pricing of the coffee with all the costs incurred up to that point. That's interesting. But it only tells how do we verify this, and these are things that are kind of hard to do. So we want to add value to the farmer and to the customer. We also need to make money. We're in business to we're not getting rich real quick here, but we are providing a really great culture and a really great job, I think, for our employees, and we care about them. And we often talk about hospitality in this two-pronged effort. We talk about internal and external hospitality. So you got hospitality for the customer that's coming in the back door, and you got customer service from the employee coming in the front door. And if we don't, so if our expectation is for the customer coming in the back door, i.e. the employee, is, hey, we want you to perform at this level, but we're only giving you tools to perform at this level, we sure as heck aren't going to be able to take care of the customer that's coming in the front door. Or if we aren't creating the infrastructure and a framework for the employee that kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit and comes in 5 minutes late, or takes one too many smoke breaks, and those sort of things. We aren't having those really they're simple conversations, but they're it's always awkward to tell somebody, hey, your team's counting on you, and we need you to step up. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful here. So those are the things that we talk about. We're really serious about this.
Do you still do those conversations?
Absolutely.
You do.
Absolutely. Okay. And I do them. I do them fairly frequently, and they're pretty easy conversations. So it's my job to identify where we are falling short, and making sure that everybody. My job is herding cats every day. That's my job is just to kind of.
You sound like a producer.
So I'm so when I see something that isn't adding up over here, and it's not, the optics aren't fair, I'm sure, to this person over here. It's a simple conversation.
So it's
so that's what true leadership really is all about, and it's about making sure that everything is equitable and everything is fair and everything is clear, and there's conversations that happen. And I'm really struggling as we grow. I'm really struggling with how because when we had one shop, it was so easy. I was there open to close every day.
Right.
We had 5 employees. And, if there was a problem, Tim's right there. He's 10 feet away.
Right.
Let's ask him.
It's totally different.
So it's really different as we have multi-layered people in between our frontline employees and me over in the ivory tower.
Right.
That's trying to that's just counting the money.
Yeah. Well, that's what I figured you were probably doing.
Yeah. Yes.
I know. Mike, I hate to bother you. Is there something I can put this in? I just suddenly realized we didn't have. I forgot to bring something down here. And I know we could do that, but that's the coward's way out. Here we go. we got a real thing here.
Mike to the rescue.
Thank you, Michael. Good thinking. That's why.
So the farmers are having a tough time, and I think they need to be rewarded for their work. The ones that are really good need to be rewarded by their work by a new system of determining what that product is valued at, and I'm certainly not the one to do that. Thank you. A little hot for me, but
Yeah, me too.
I like to let it cool
I
down
do
just
too.
a little bit, but
we'll do that.
but that's nice. So this is our Colombian coffee. So this is from Nariño, or not that one, from Nariño. So it's a cooperative that we've been dealing with for 7 years. I mean, it's our first coffee.
Now, how many farmers are in that cooperative?
I think there's 45.
45. Wow, but that's relatively small for the right. I mean, some cooperatives are bigger.
Yeah.
And certainly it's a great. You know what it is? It's if someone asks me they like a Colombian coffee and they want a good cup, and they don't want to pay through the nose for it, because I think I have to ask you how much it is. I can't remember right now.
It's crept up. It's $11.25 for
25 to 12 ounces.
Yeah. So it's still a value coffee. It's still a value coffee, but when we, so Alfred Pete had this philosophy of always having a coffee at least one coffee that was south of $10, and I really liked that that concept.
Even if we had to make the bag a little smaller.
Yeah, it's an 8-ounce bag of coffee, but so.
I've seen even some more smaller ones coming up.
So when we first opened, this was $9, and just as we've grown and as we've dealt with the pressures of wage increases and some of the other pressures upon us, we've had to raise prices. But we try not to be we haven't been abrupt with it, and we've done that slowly over the course of many years. We every year we raise prices because every year costs go up, and so. Our biggest increase right now is labor costs and wages, and that's one of our biggest challenges. We still continue to find great people that deliver on this message of hospitality. So we're not good at marketing. We're not good at talking about coffee. We're not good at salesmanship. I mean, just kind of across the board.
You really think that?
I do. We're really not good at it on the retail side, and there's room for growth, and there's room to learn about how to do that better. I never want to come off as a kind of a smarmy kind of sales guy. And I just want it. Whatever we do, I want it to be of value. I don't want it to be a reaction. So, like a couple of years ago with the plastic straws. And how all of a sudden, I mean, it's something that I had been kind of seeing come at us for about 9 months, and none of our customers really said anything, and then they still don't. Many of them don't say anything, but we decided at a certain point that a plastic straw costs a penny, but we go through a lot of them, and we decided to make the investment to go to a plant-based straw that increased our cost fourfold. So it's a 4-cent straw now.
Quadrupled.
But we did it pretty quietly. We didn't, we weren't like thumping our chest and saying, "Hey, we're saving the turtles" and that sort of thing.
I would agree. You guys don't make much of.
We don't make a whole
efforts.
hullabaloo about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So we really want it to be and we have gotten some recognition from our customers, some thank yous, and that's the important thing. So we want to do the right thing, but we really don't want to have it be like this whole marketing campaign. And
Understood. Now, let's talk about just in the final few minutes before Pat comes back and yanks the chain on me.
Yeah.
What is the and then yanks pulls the plug on the. What is your opinion? I used 50 grams. I coarse ground it.
okay,
Pretty
you're
coarse.
gonna make me pull out my
No.
calculator.
It says 750 grams finished weight. So, I mean, it's one and a half, right?
Okay,
It's 50 grams of coffee to 750.
So 15 to 1.
Yeah.
That's
15 to 1.
awesome.
Yeah, good.
So when we so 15
this
to
tastes
1.
great, by the way.
It's
Just
really nice.
Yeah.
So 15 to 1. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about the ratio of grams of water to grams of coffee. So we put you ground and weighed out 50 grams of coffee and put in 750 grams, more correctly milliliters, but
Right,
grams
correct, yeah.
grams
Using the
of
metric
water
system of water.
of water. So that yields a little bit less than
Three-quarters of a liter.
yeah. Okay. Yep.
So it's what we end up with.
Yep.
And it's enough for 4 or 5 cups.
Yep. So I just to get that 15 to 1, I just took the 750 and divided it by 50 and got 15. So it's a great way to kind of play around with brewing coffee. So one of the things that consumers should do is there are a couple things that consumers should do is play with your coffee. So you should first of all buy fresh coffee, preferably from a local roaster in your community, and get a relationship going with them. Ask them questions. Ask them where they get their coffee. If there should be some transparency there and some excitement and enthusiasm.
As it is for me when I walk into Big Shoulders and I say, "What am I buying today, Tim?"
What's good? So get a scale. Get a good scale, gram scale. Get a brewing system. So here we're using Chemex, which is my personal favorite. This is how I brew every morning. Get a kettle that has a thermometer on it, and have a timer handy. I've gotten to a point where I don't use a timer anymore, but you want to brew in about 4 minutes time, and get a burr grinder. So it sounds like, oh my gosh, it's so complicated, and I'd rather just have my Mr. Coffee brewer
or a K cup.
Yep. So if there's anything that K cups have helped us define, they've defined for us that coffee is so troublesome to make. And making a good cup of coffee is troublesome, and if you just pop this little thing in, and so I was away last week and was in a hotel, and there was a Keurig, and so when I woke up at 5 a.m, I was like, okay, let me try this, and it was just the most obscene
It wasn't good.
swill. It was terrible.
Oh, it wasn't good.
So anyway, so we really want to get to a proper brewing temperature. So somewhere between, and this is where consumers can play around a little bit, somewhere between 195
Yeah, you
and
got a
205.
10 degree range.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that picky.
I like the 202, 203 number. I like that. Then the grind. So if your coffee's sour, chances are pretty good it's too coarse. If it's bitter and you're getting like a strong like leather taste on your sides of your mouth, it's over extracted, it's too fine, or the water's too hot. So these are things that you can play around with. So so it really sounds a little complicated, but it's not. It's not very complicated at all.
Okay, in the last few minutes, because I'm already over, what's your name your top three favorite coffees that are at Big Shoulders right now.
No, Kenya, Peru, Guatemala. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, really awesome.
Interesting.
The Peru is about gone, but the Kenya and the Guatemala is probably going to be gone. The Guatemala San Marcos, but we've got a Guatemala to replace that just came in
Same
yesterday.
region or different region?
Different region.
Okay.
But that's a coffee that I'm really excited about. That Guatemala coming in, and we've got a Honduras that just came in yesterday too. That I haven't even dug into yet. The Colombia, I drink it every day.
I'm telling you, it's my go-to coffee, and as much as, sometimes you're nice enough to just give me one, but I do buy my fair share of coffee.
Yeah,
and the Colombia, I just grab it even if I
Mariano's or Whole Foods, our local grocers.
Mariano's,
it's I think they charge less than we do, but it's my first cup of the morning. And when I go to the cafes, it's what I drink. It's our benchmark coffee. It probably represents about 60% of all of our business, wholesale and retail. I often thought it was just based on price, but it's a great coffee.
Yeah, it does not have to be. As much as I love Mike Perry at Klatch. I love Klatch coffee. As a matter of fact, I have mixed feelings about the $75 coffee.
Oh yeah, right. The world's most expensive coffee.
Yeah, and I want Mike to do well and everything, but I definitely, it's you don't have to spend that kind of money, and if you're not brewing properly, you're wasting it.
Yeah, well, I don't have a lot of thoughts on that because I don't know the backstory. I don't know where that money went to. I don't know. I haven't tried the coffee. I don't know. Have you?
I have had. As a matter of fact, did I have it yet? I thought Aaron at 10 Drops made a cup for me.
Oh, cool.
And if I recall, it was excellent. But Mike's coffee that's less than $20 a bag
Klatch
is good.
They're stupendous.
Is wonderful too.
Yep.
So I just want people to. It's fun if you've got that kind of money. It's kind of like having an anniversary and splurging for a bottle of champagne or a good wine.
Yeah.
In my wife's case, she likes white wine, so I'd get her a nice, beautiful Chardonnay that she would love.
Yeah.
That would be. But on the other hand, you could get Chateau Jean, and it's a really excellent wine too, and it's $10.
Well, you've got to have those everyday
Yeah.
go-to beverages, and you got to have one that's a special occasion. So,
Right.
Understanding the story and the narrative and the process behind it, and appreciating all the work that went into it.
Once in a while, you get a coffee that is, and I'm trying to think. Actually, I'm thinking of a Pete's coffee I had once, an aged Java that Jim Reynolds sent me for Christmas, and he said, "I don't have a whole lot of this. I know it's one of your favorites." He said, "Showed up. A UPS driver showed up. I think I made the UPS driver wait and have a cup of it. I was so high on this coffee. I know my neighbors all did. Hong next door, my neighbor who taught me the Vietnamese method of prep and everything, he came over and had one, and he's like, "Oh, this is excellent."
Cool.
It was a cool, and even the Pete's roast, it survived it, and it you could still taste varietal in it.
Yeah.
There are coffees you have that are just, but on the other hand, it wasn't like the most expensive coffee Pete's ever sold.
Yeah.
And it was, once in a while you just get one that resonates with you like that.
And that's great.
But it shouldn't necessarily be. I'm telling you, this Columbia, I could drink it all day.
Oh, it's good. And I thank you. I do drink it all day, and it's done us well.
Well, on that, really appreciate you coming here. I know
Yeah.
I promised it would be a half hour, and I know you're busy, but
It's all good. I'm
okay.
super excited to be here, and
Thank you.
and thank you.
Thank you. All right, and keep in mind, are we going off? Are we off the air yet, or are we headed to it? Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. I'm looking forward to Marcus Boney being a guest next week. He's running the U.S. chapter for the SCA. Take care. Yeah, this is
Awesome.